This is the projector view of the student Pear Deck that you just completed. You'll notice that what the teacher is projecting looks different than what the student sees, but the teacher has the ability to use this dashboard to show student responses. The first slide you completed was an example of a draggable slide. The question was, how familiar are you with Pear Deck? So when I show the responses down here, you'll see where the students line up. I'm going to stop hiding responses and move on to the next slide. This slide doesn't have any interactive pieces, it's just an informational slide. For the next several slides, we're going to talk about some mathematical routines. Mathematical routines are really great because they get kids excited about math. They're usually engaging, they warm up the math brain, they have kids use mathematical vocabulary organically. There's multiple entry points, there's not one right answer, and it promotes that everyone can be good at math. This slide was an example of a draw slide. You will notice that you had the opportunity to draw on this slide or type text on this slide. And the question was, would you rather have half of a cookie or 1/4 of a cookie? And you were supposed to support your answer where you could draw anywhere on this slide. In order to show the responses for this one, you wouldn't want your student responses to be stacked. There are 3 different ways to see responses: in the grid layout, as is shown, in the overlaid layout, which doesn't really make sense, or in the list layout, which would be every student's individual response. So for this particular one, I might use the grid layout to see all of my student responses more easily. This slide is an example of a multiple choice slide. So you had the opportunity to pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the question was, which one doesn't belong? Remember, this is a mathematical routine, so there isn't one right answer. This would be a way for you to get your students to just pick one. Then you would be able to show the responses and see, oh my gosh, we had several different answers. Does anyone want to share why they picked 2 as their answer? Or does anyone want to share why they picked 4 as their answers? And it's just a way to get kids really talking about math. This next slide is an example of a poll slide. The question is alike or different? 3 of these boxes are alike. Which one is different? Why is it different? So students would think through the math problems and decide which one they thought was different. And you had the opportunity to vote for A, B, C, or D. Then you could, as a teacher, show responses and have a discussion. This is an example of a text slide where you can type your answer. So for this one, you're asking the students, without counting one by one, how many triangles are there and how did you figure it out? You'd be able to show your results and ask kids to explain their thinking. Our last example is an example of a number slide. This example isn't a mathematical routine as much as it is a mental math problem for second graders. So you could read the question, and then the answer would have had to have been a number. This particular slide, if you noticed, in the bottom right-hand corner, had the symbol of the headphones. That means that there's audio that can be read aloud for this particular slide. If you didn't see that, feel free to go back and check it out. If you haven't yet completed the student Pear Deck, please do so before you move on. You will get credit for completing the Pear Deck for this asynchronous course.